Assalamu alaikum. My name is Kashaf Sheikh. I'm a psychotherapist. I've been invited to the show today to talk about relationships, how to foster healthy patterns in our relationships, and how to identify unhealthy patterns in the relationship. Over the years, our society and world at large has gone to a massive shift in terms of relationships. पहले जैसे लोगों के relationships define होते थे पहले से ही उनके family से, उनके आइडेंटिटी से, वो किधर बिलोंग करते हैं, अपनी बरादरी से, अपने जेंडर से भी. अब थोड़ी चेंजेस आ रही हैं because people are changing. People no longer want the traditional roles that they've seen growing up. People themselves have defined what kind of lives they want and what kind of lives they would like to live. So now, before जैसे हमारे पास सारे rules होते थे, अब we have nothing. There is no one rule that works for everybody, which causes a lot of uncertainty and confusion in relationships. One thing that is very, very important in relationships is conversations, talking about things that haven't been talked about before with your own partner, to decide how you would like things to be, where you would like your relationship to go, as you may be doing things very different than your own parents, even than your own siblings and your own friends. So things that may work for others may not necessarily work for you. That doesn't mean that it's an unhealthy relationship. It just means your needs are different and their needs may be different. Talking about individuals and their own needs, just say there are some people who want to work, there are some people who don't want to work. There are some people who want to stay at home. There are some people who want to invest a lot in their community and their society, and there are some who are introverts. The reason I'm talking about these things is to understand personal differences in humans, and when choosing and selecting your partners, to being careful in terms of what is it that you're looking for. मुझे जहाँ तक पता है, within our own society, sometimes the ideas of marriages, what your partner should be, is often dictated by your own family members, by your friends, by other people in your life who are not living your life. अगर आप एक बहुत traditional इंसान हैं and you would want your partner to be very traditional, it is advised to go for somebody who's already traditional to begin with. अक्सर समझा जाता है कि शादी होएगी, इंसान बदल जाएगा, and unfortunately that doesn't always happen. So the secret deal that humans make with one another, that the person we're getting into a relationship with or we're going to get married to may change, is often hurtful as it builds up to resentment, as the other person is their own being and doesn't work based on our own perception of who we want them to be. So I feel it is very, very important that before people get married, they define what is it that they're looking for. They explore each other's interest, their values, what kind of a life they're looking for. So you're not changing somebody based on what you want them to be, because that leads to a very difficult marriage and compromises and sacrifices. We're all raised and grown up by our parents with a lot of control. There was control, them telling us how we should be, how we should show up, how one gender is allowed to do one thing, how the other gender is not allowed to do another thing. In the society we live in, and not just Pakistan, but I feel worldwide, it is a bit of a patriarchal structure where women are told they have to invest in their family, they have to create a family, the family well-being is dependent on them. As you may be aware of, this dialogue is changing quite a lot. This responsibility lies on both people. The idea of family no longer just relies on women. Sometimes the idea of breadwinner also no longer lies on men. Now there is a talk about shared responsibilities and shared duties, as opposed to this is your part, this is my part, let's do our things and then meet in the middle. Sometimes now people want to do things together. Jaise ke growing up, fathers did not have a very active role in our upbringing. Now fathers are very involved with their children, which is a nice change to be seen, as fathers can give a lot of values and teach their children a lot more things, which sometimes women struggle to do. So the shared responsibilities and duties is bringing beautiful changes within the society. However, there's no hard and fast rule. You have to see what you want and what works for you. If you don't want somebody who's a bit more modern, then you should go with somebody who has traditional ideas and views. One of the things I've noticed in my own profession while working with clients is how one wants to control the other wants to control the other, and this shift in perspective keeps coming and going. What we struggle to do is accept one for where they are, as they are. In our society, our elders often tell us, okay, once you get married, this thing may change, this thing may go away, something you don't like about. जैसे often औरतों को नहीं पसंद कि if their husband smoke or if their husband have a certain kind of a lifestyle and they're told overly and over again कि शादी के बाद ये ऐसा नहीं होगा, ये सब बदल जाएगा. और वो नहीं अक्सर बदलता. And sometimes men are also told this about women कि अगर वो social है तो कुछ नहीं होता, शादी के बाद वो बदल जाएगी. जो अक्सर ऐसा नहीं होता because that's who people are, that's part of their personality. So the secret deal we do with ourselves, hoping one changes after the marriage, creates a lot of resentment within the marriage because you feel like you've been deceived, whereas you never actually clarified with the other person, this is what you would want. What clarifications do is it helps you recognize, is this partner for you or is this partner not for you? In our society, there is quite a lot of insecurities in terms of हमारी शादी नहीं हो रही, हमारी शादी कब होगी? Or in that rush of just wanting to get things done, it feels like sometimes people are choosing wrong partners for themselves because they're choosing partners just for the sake of marriage. They're not choosing partners to develop a healthy relation within themselves to decide where their life will be going. So I feel it is very important to start thinking, what is it that you want in your relationship? And not necessarily going by, okay, what did my mother want, or what my mother thinks is best for me, or what works for my sister, or what works for my brother, because those things may not necessarily work for you. In my education and my professional life, one thing that I've seen quite closely is how two relationships resemble one another. Those two relationships are one by people who raised us, and the second one, the one who we fell in love with. People who raised us, that's where we learn how to trust one another, how to care for one another, what loyalty is, what commitment is, what sharing is, what caring is, what giving, receiving, taking is. That's language of love also. That is something we learn from the people who raise us. Another thing we also learn from them is what to do when there is conflict, how to manage conflict, how to resolve conflict, how to displace your emotions, how to express your emotions. These things are very well replicated within relationships where people fall in love with. When you're having good days, you're able to express your kindness to the other person, how you care for them, how you love them, how you're considerate to them, how well meaning you are towards them. When there are bad days happening, which is quite often the case in everybody who's been married, there's another side that comes up, which is perhaps how they are when conflict happens, how they are when they're angry, how they blame the other, how they don't take responsibility, how there's no accountability. All these things are often learned from our own home environments. And जैसे I've noticed, I've heard of my clients talk about, okay, when I was growing up, this, and I promised to myself I wouldn't do this to my own partner. But you grow up and you end up doing that. And then when you're doing this, you notice it, you're ashamed of it, but yet you also want to hide it. And what you do is you say the other person made you do it. You blame this on the other person. So here, it's not about the other person. It's also about recognizing your own flaws sometimes and how you can be better in that. Because if you have a better relationship with yourself, you're more likely to show up and have a better relationship with your own partner. There's often one person in a couple, one who is afraid to lose the other person, which is they're afraid they're going to be abandoned by the other person. Then there is one person in the couple who's afraid they're going to lose their own identity in this relationship, and they may experience suffocation within the relation. And these fears and insecurities make one person show up as they show up based on their insecurities and fears. It's not necessarily a personal thing, but of course in relationships you do take a lot of problems personally. I think growing up we also start fantasizing what kind of a relationship we want, and some movies have not helped our identities of what the one is, and so many people come up and saying, I found my one, and this is my one, or this is not the one. But what does that even mean? People have an expectation or a disillusion that the one person will fix all our worries, will give us so much certainties, will help us just be a better person. But that is not possible at all. Another person cannot take responsibility of you. But if it's one going into a relationship thinking that person will solve all my problems, we are setting ourselves to failure. We are setting the other person to failure because our expectations of what the one should do for us is so high, they're naturally not going to be met. One thing that is encouraged in relationships is to foster relationships with other individuals. We're very lucky in Pakistan. हमारे पास फैमिली होती है, हमारे पास एक अच्छी सोसाइटी है, हमारे इर्द गिर्द लोग हैं जो हमारे पूछते हैं, जो हमारा ख्याल रखते हैं. It is important we invest our relationship with them also, because at the end of the day, we don't need the one to support us. We need a group of people who are there to support us, encourage us, love us, and are there for us when we need them. And we're also there for them. So this community building is also very important in relationship, because there's often scenarios where when people get into a relationship, they forget everybody else and they just invest in that relationship. And that does lead to a lot of problems within the relationship from one another also. So talking about what do you want from your partner, if you want to call them the one. If I'm honest, there are people who do find the one. It's not like that nobody finds the one. But people who find the one, they're very well aware that the one doesn't give you all the certainties in life, because life is not certain at all. So they accept that there will be uncertainties. They accept that there will be disappointments. So maybe the idea here is also to explore what our definition of the one is. One thing that I understand to be very healthy for yourself and how you are in a relationship is to be seen, heard, and understood. When we're able to see, hear, and understand ourselves, that is when we're able to do that to the other. If you're with somebody who's unable to see, hear you, or understand you, it's not maybe because they don't want to. Perhaps you do want to understand, maybe they also don't really understand themselves. Bonds and connections we make with other people gives us more meaning in life than any other human experience. हम लोग बहुत पैसे कमा सकते हैं, हम बहुत ज़्यादा काम कर सकते हैं, but if we don't have healthy relationships in our life, we may not have happiness within our life or satisfaction or a true purpose of life.